We'll have to get your take on what you feel about the fact that Harry has finally revealed he's coming to the coronation, but Meghan isn't.
Well, I thought it was rude that they didn't reply in the first place within the RSVP, but I think it's a good decision. I think it's pragmatic. I don't think there's been any apologies, put it that way, demands of this, demand of that. I don't think that's happened. I think it's a pragmatic decision that obviously the Sussex made together. She's not coming, looking after the kids are very young, and I think that's wise as well. And, everyone seems to blame Meghan for everything, it does seem to be, in this country, because Harry's Diana's son. But actually, I think a lot of this is down to Harry and his petulance, and, at the end of the day, she's probably a little scared to come here and get booed and picked on, and it become a tabloid issue, a major, big issue that really would detract from the coronation anyway. So in a way, I think it's a good decision by them.
Well, that was what I found fascinating in your book, that, of course, the narrative has always been, all of these shenanigans, Megxit and, them dropping out of the royal family, going to California, their controversial new life, that it's all down to, domineering Meghan.
Yeah.
But you say in your book, you reveal in your book, that no, that isn't necessarily the case, that Harry has been very much a mover and shaker in all of this as well.
I think a lot of the problem with Meghan came from her untruth bombs, as I call them, in Oprah Winfrey, which was littered with, dare I say it, lies, things that weren't true. Even the Archbishop of Canterbury had to correct them on saying that they'd had a secret marriage. And he said, well, no, you didn't, otherwise I'll be in the hot water. So, and maybe a lot of it was down to her lost in translation. I don't know. I'm not American, I don't know. But it does seem that since that moment, the British turned on her, not so much him. But I think that he probably is more of a driving force. And we only now realise that with all this stuff going on with him turning up in court over the case against the Daily Mail at the High Court. He didn't need to be there. He turns up and on a time when his father is on an important state visit. So I think that we maybe should be looking more closer to home and to the way that Harry's behaving, rather than picking on Meg, because I think actually she's probably just quite content saying, oh, it's like going to a Christmas dinner, isn't it? You've got to go to the in-laws dinner and you say, and you had an almighty row in the family and you just don't want to turn up.
Yeah, it's interesting, that the media over here and in America as well has probably been a little unfair to Harry insofar as we've always depicted him as the henpecked husband, doing exactly what he's told, this powerful woman saying, do this, do that. But you're right, when we saw him coming over to the court, because he's taking action against the Mail on Sunday or the Associated Newspapers, he's clearly a driving force.
I think so. Yeah. I think so. And I think that, why would he suddenly go from being the cheeky Harry that we all sort of said, but this army captain that was a leader and praised by his men that fought alongside him in Afghanistan, strong man who fought against the army hierarchy, say, I must go on the front line, even though he could have taken a pen-pushing job somewhere. No, he's someone who's quite determined. I mean, he's got his mother's determination there, and he's got his father's determination too. So, look, I'm not saying that Meghan's faultless, but I think she's certainly not the wicked witch of the north or south, whatever it is.
Well, as a journalist, and I'm sure you feel the same, Rob, I really wanted both of them to come to the coronation. But as a citizen of this country and a loyal subject of King Charles, I think we're all pretty relieved that she's not coming. And I would imagine that Charles and the royal family are relieved as well.
I think the King, His Majesty, will be thrilled that both his sons are going to be there, because it's his moment of destiny. And I think it's right that both your sons are there, as well as your wife, the Queen Camilla. And I think he'd have been very disappointed if Harry hadn't turned up. Now, is there going to be relief? Yeah, I mean, I say in my book that Catherine, Princess of Wales, found it very difficult to do the Fab Four walkabout.
Yeah, no, that was a great revelation.
And that she confided that, and the very fact that that's awkward, orcs, as they say, the young kids today.
Hashtag orcs.
Hashtag orcs, and I think that'll be the same for Queen Camilla, really, because at the end of the day, there's the women there would have to, in their royal family, a bit like Sophie, for example, she was turned down to be asked by the Queen to be a mentor, and Meghan said, no, I don't want that, I've got Harry. All these things that the women really would be quite difficult place to go for Meghan.
So, we're hearing that the King is very thrilled that Harry is coming, despite all the brickbats he's been throwing at the royal family over the last couple of stormy years, calling the royal family racist, his dad mean.
Well, then he pulled back on that, didn't he? So
that's right, he did.
Deeply unconscious bias. But there's a great revelation in this book about, which Ken Wolfe, my old pal, the Diana's bodyguard, said they went out on Diana arranged for them to have a tour of London on a red bus. And on the bus, there was a Punjabi bus conductor with a big yellow turban. And Harry kept, every time the guy rang the bell, they rang the bell for someone to get off, because they were on with ordinary punters. He then made this... he mocked the guy, this sort of as 8-year-olds were. I'm not going to say on radio what he said, but he basically...
let's not do that,
I've had enough trouble. But he said something, and Diana got him off the bus and gave him a clip round the ear for doing it. Said, don't you ever say anything like that again, or be racist again. And that, we talk about unconscious bias. I think she nearly knocked him unconscious, according to Ken. But then afterwards, as Diana would, she asked him to write a letter to Ken to thank him for everything. Wrote him a letter, said, thank you so much, Ken, for waking this day. I'm sorry I behaved like I did. And then he ended it, signed it, Harry, and then afterwards he put the phrase that he used on the bus.
Well, he was a mischievous kid, but it's interesting you just say Diana.
But he was a kid. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. He's only 8 years old. We'll cut him some slack on that one. But it's interesting that his mum stepped in because in those days we weren't quite, as a nation, quite so sensitive about racism.
Well,
so she was
stepped in, but so did the King. I mean, the King would have been furious on Prince Wales. Yeah. There's one thing. I mean, look, Kevin, we were around at the time, and
we were,
and they disagreed on a lot of things. Charles and Diana. There was the famous War of the Waleses, but they certainly agreed on one thing: that their kids were not going to be racist and would be picked up on it if they were.
Well, good for them. Now, as I say, the King is thrilled that Harry is coming, and probably very relieved that Meghan isn't. So there's been. Usually is, in these situations, talk of rapprochement. Now, there's not going to be any rapprochement between William and Harry, is it? The feuding brothers. That is a bitter rift, isn't it?
I can't see that one healing over a ping-pong visit by Harry to London. He's in and out in a flash, I'm sure.
And where do you think, I mean, I'm just sort of picking your brains here, but where do you think Harry might sit in the congregation? There have been quips that he'll be back in the back row next to his wicked uncle, Prince Andrew.
I don't think they've probably worked that all out yet. I mean, I think that this is an important occasion for the King. They're both his sons, I suspect. Like the seating arrangements for the memorial service for the Duke of Edinburgh, I think the children will be in the front. All the children, including Andrew, are in the front row, and I think that in that case, so will Harry.
As you alluded to earlier, I think Catherine, I always call her Kate, she doesn't like that, does she? Catherine, the Princess of Wales, she will be very relieved that Meghan isn't coming. And let's face it, she can't stand her, can she? Come on, that's true, isn't it?
All I'd say is this, in this book about the King.
No, we're going to go over the King in a minute.
Yes, look, I think. Put it this way: Catherine is raised by a great family. She's a middle class girl that's held her own in this family for a long time. I think that she would be able to handle anything.
Okay, I'd say she'll be pleased that her nemesis is not coming.